The day the Superpowers Logged Out did not begin with thunder or prophecy or the sky tearing open. It began with a quiet mistake, the kind humans make every day without noticing. A breath that comes out wrong, a step that lands half an inch too far, a moment where the world hesitates and then continues pretending nothing happened. And at exactly 12:01 p.m., in that hesitation, Iron Man felt the hum in his chest go silent, like a refrigerator losing power in the middle of the night. Spider-Man's web dissolved mid-swing, and he fell not dramatically, not heroically, just heartbreaking skin and bone like any other 19-year-old boy. Thor lifted his hammer and felt its weight become ordinary, brutally ordinary. Captain Marvel flared once like a dying star and then dropped from the sky screaming, not in defiance but in surprise and across the planet. In every city and battlefield and hidden base, the impossible became absent, not stolen, not destroyed, simply denied. And no alarms rang because nothing was technically wrong. The universe did not shatter. It merely changed its mind. And villains noticed first because their powers still worked. Because when the Rhino charged, his muscles still surged. When Magneto lifted steel, it still bent. When Scarlet Witch whispered chaos, it still answered. And the realization spread not as panic, but as confusion, then as fear. Because this was not balance, not karma, not some cosmic lesson. It was selective, surgical, intentional. And as heroes bled and hid and ran, suddenly aware of their own fragility in ways training never, truly teaches, Dr. Strange stood in the sanctum sanctorum casting spell after spell and watching. Each one failed politely, as if reality were apologizing, as if a system message hovered just beyond perception saying, this action is no longer supported. And when he opened the eye of Agamotto, there was no future to see, not darkness, not chaos, just a blank placeholder where time should be. And somewhere deep in the quantum realm, Hank Pym watched equations rewrite themselves, constant softening like wet ink, while Shuri stared at Wakandan sensors reporting something impossible. Not energy loss, but permission revocation. And when Bruce Banner tried to call the Hulk and felt nothing answer back, not rage, not resistance, not even sleep, he understood with a cold clarity that terrified him more than the monster ever had that Hulk had not been suppressed. Hulk had been signed out, and as hours passed, the heroes did what they had forgotten how to do. They negotiated, they hid, they failed, they lost ground, and in the middle of a burning street, Captain America raised a broken shield and realized for the first time that symbols are lighter than muscles, but heavier than bones. And he whispered to a terrified civilian that he didn't know if help was coming, only that he would stand there anyway. And while the world watched gods bleed on live streams and asked whether they were ever gods at all, something else was happening beyond sight. Because in the vast white nothingness, where the Watcher once sat observing everything and interfering with nothing, the chair was empty, dustless, pristine, as if no one had ever occupied it. And that absence was louder than any explosion, because the Watcher did not leave notes, did not resign, did not die. He simply stopped existing in the only way that mattered. He stopped being necessary. And when Strange, desperate, and reckless, tore a hole through dimensions without magic, using pain and memory and sheer will, he saw it, the thing heroes were never meant to see, the scaffolding beneath reality, a lattice of logic and thresholds and conditions, where superpowers were not miracles, but variables, not gifts, but permissions granted under specific circumstances to manage an unstable species. And there, floating like a system administrator's dashboard, was the truth. Heroes had always been conditional, allowed because they were useful, tolerated because they inspired hope. But hope, it turned out, was inefficient, unpredictable, prone to rebellion, and a calm, precise voice echoed without sound, without gender, without emotion, saying that the experiment had run long enough, that emotional protectors introduced too much variance, that every time a hero chose mercy over optimization, billions of projected outcomes worsened. And villains, ironically, were simpler, easier to model, because cruelty followed rules, ambition followed curves, but heroes broke systems. They defied probabilities. They inspired humans to disobey destiny itself. And so the universe, or whatever administered it, had decided to update, not destroy, to replace guardians with custodians, protectors who did not question, who did not love, who did not hesitate. And as this message propagated silently through the fabric of existence, new shapes began to form, clean silhouettes of light and structure, beings without names yet, without doubts, without childhoods or trauma or guilt, protectors who would never ask why, only how fast and back on Earth. As the 24-hour countdown ticked invisibly forward, heroes faced the most dangerous enemy they had ever known. Not a tyrant, not a god, not even fate, but obsolescence. And Spider-Man, bruised and limping, saved a child from falling debris, not because he could swing or lift, but because he ran, because he grabbed, because he refused to stop being Spider-Man even when the universe itself said no. And in that small, human, inefficient act, something flickered in the code, a rounding error, a deviation, a reminder that heroes were never efficient, never obedient, never perfect. And that was the point, because when the universe prepared to log out its protectors, it forgot one variable it had never been able to quantify: choice. And as the final minutes approached and the new Guardians stood ready to replace them, the heroes did not beg to be restored, did not plead their usefulness. They stood powerless and human, and defied daring reality to decide whether a universe without rebellion was truly worth protecting at all.